Hi, my name's Phil and welcome to LabourVision, where we discuss Labour policies in a way the mainstream media doesn't cover. In this episode, I'm going to take a look at some of the language being used around Labour's policies as they finalise the manifesto over the next few days, ready for a probable May election. So Labour and their policies have been very much in the news this last week. The £28 billion Green Investment Plan, bankers' bonus, boosted employment rights, House of Lords reform and Bombproof Policies. What does it all mean? Well, first I'm going to discuss this idea of bomb-proof policies. So Keir Starmer has insisted that all manifesto policies be bomb-proof. Earlier today I saw someone describing the tactic as pointless because your opponents are always going to find something to attack. They assumed that being bomb-proof simply meant can't be attacked. But although part of the bomb-proofing process has meant senior Labour leaders working on strategies to defend the policies in the general election campaign, that's not what the term means. That's not the main focus. Bomb-proofing to Starmer means that the policies will be delivered. A lot of people think a government can just announce a policy and then when it's in power, implement the policy. It's not as easy as that. Do you think the current state of Brexit is what the Conservatives imagined? No, they made policies without really knowing how they were going to implement them. Starmer wants to make sure that everything in the manifesto can and will be delivered in government. There's lots of people who will say, oh, we should have this policy or that policy, or Labour should adopt this other policy. They say it as if just saying it can make it happen. But there's a process. Plenty of governments in the past have genuinely tried to do a thing and then found, oh, it's not as easy as we thought. And there's some people saying, well, Starmer's not going to do anything radical at all. Very few will be saying this in 10 years' time. But in order to get the public to trust him to deliver really big changes, he needs a track record. Doesn't have one in government. The idea is to make sure that the manifesto is delivered in the first term so that come the following election, he can say, you point to me at a single line in the manifesto that I didn't deliver. That's what he wants to be able to say. He can't say it at the moment. He's relying on the public giving him trust that he will do it. He wants in the following election to be able to say, you point to me anything in that manifesto I did not deliver, so that voters can then trust him to deliver what he's going to sound like, something that will be harder to achieve in the second term. The House of Lords is a case in point. It's obvious that Starmer personally wants to replace the Lords with an elected chamber. He threw his own weight behind that announcement when Gordon Brown published the paper that he commissioned, even though he never made it a central plank of his campaign. And even though, you ask anyone else in Labour, it's like, oh, yeah, maybe. There is resistance to the plan and a lot of resistance within the Labour Party. Replacing the entire chamber is going to be tricky enough if he had the full Labour Party wind behind his sails, but he doesn't. If he tried to replace it in one term, he would not succeed. There's too many people trying to trip him up on it. So he'd be making a manifesto promise that he could not keep. And then, come the following election, if he tries to say to someone, point to me a line that in the manifesto that I didn't deliver, they'll go, well, there's that one there, and then that one, and that one. That's what bomb-proofing's about, making sure that cannot happen. He's made it clear for some time he's not going to do this, so it'll just not be in the manifesto. Doesn't mean he doesn't intend to do it, doesn't mean he won't do it, just that he needs to build up his authority to do it first, this time with the public. The same is true in a different way to the £28 billion green investment. It's being reported that it's been dropped. It hasn't been dropped. Labour are just wishing they'd never brought up this umbrella term. All of the individual policies which make up their green investment offer, such as Great British Energy, are still intact and still fully funded. After the economic problems of last year, Labour changed their £28 billion a year commitment to an ambition. Now that still remains. On the same day that The Guardian published an article that's been widely shared that the policy had been dropped based on anonymous figures in Labour, Keir Starmer, the actual party leader, was saying, no, it's still in place. Obviously, all the useful idiots decided to believe The Guardian and their anonymous sources rather than the actual party leader in a televised interview. So what is the actual truth? It is that Labour are basically going to split the Green Investment Plan into its constituent parts. They're all going to be in the manifesto. None of them are being scaled back. Labour are going to try and stop talking about this £28 billion aspect of it because the Tories keep using it to say that Labour are going to put up taxes. That is the reason for the prevarication. It's purely about the £28 billion figure rather than the individual investment scheme that make it up. It's just a change of rhetoric. The policies are all in place. I challenge anyone to say which policy has been removed or scaled back, because none of them have. Not a single one has been changed. Labour were just, not talking. They were not just talking about their investment plans last week. There was also workers' rights. Now, naturally, the mainstream media was so busy trying to say Labour had changed certain policies when they hadn't at all that they forgot to mention this. But Keir Starmer was also giving speeches reminding people that within months of a Labour government, 0 hours contracts, gone. Fire and rehire, banned. Genuine living wage. Frankly, anyone saying we might as well have the Tories as Labour just because he won't promise and fail to abolish the House of Lords in the first term is not a serious political voice. That being said, it doesn't mean Labour are getting everything right, because as long as you focus on what's actually been said rather than simply being what's reported. The fact that Labour even mentioned the £28 billion investment ever from opposition was certainly in hindsight a mistake. Because had they just announced the individual green investment plans as individual policies rather than putting them under this umbrella of green investment, nobody would be batting an eyelid right now because nothing will have changed. The same with the House of Lords. Had Starmer talked about a long-term plan to gradually replace the House of Lords with an elected chamber beginning in their first term, nobody would be batting an eyelid here because that's basically what Labour is still saying. It's not Labour's policies that people are complaining about. It's the rhetoric, the fact that the language has changed. But I do think Labour have made one statement which seems unwise. Rachel Reeves vowed that they would not restate the cap on bankers' bonuses. Now, I'm going to endeavour to find out why, because I really don't know. But I am sure it made no sense to say it, even if there's some good reason behind it. These sort of bankers reaching the previous legal cap on bonuses are too few in number to have any electoral value to Labour. If Labour didn't want to prioritise parliamentary time to legislate the caps back, well, they could have just said that. They could have just said, well, look, we were opposed to the removal of the caps and that's still our position, but we've got higher priorities for parliamentary time when we're in government than replacing them. But they've expressed the new policy as if it's positively a good thing. And the problem with that is it's not actually popular and it draws obvious accusations of a U-turn, given that they opposed the removal of the caps last year. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to hurt Labour. Most people don't consider it a policy that affects their vote or their thinking at all. The focus on the cost of living crisis, the NHS, for example, are way, way more important. But when I talked at the beginning of the video about how much effort Labour are putting into persuading voters that they can deliver what they say, it seems unnecessarily counter to that to keep drawing accusations of U-turns. Like, why would you do it? But there we are. Hopefully that covers some of the policy and rhetoric that was doing the rounds this last week. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.